Thank you very much. I'm going to give a little bit of a reflection on innovation and research when it comes to sustainability, and in particular focus on climate change. And I will focus on innovation as a way of, as the definition is, taking invention out to the market where there is a market and a willingness to pay for that. And the big innovation challenge that we see when it comes to climate change is the one of commercializing and demonstrating and deployment. So that's the big innovation issues we see from WWF. A few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we developed a scenario for a 100% renewable energy future globally by 2050. And we spent 2 years with researchers doing this, and this was after the Copenhagen fiasco that someone's mentioned it before, in terms of the energy transition. Can we actually do it globally to 2050? And what we saw was, yes, we can actually do that, but it is very, very demanding on energy efficiency. We need to deliver services much more efficiently, and then fuel those services with renewable energy. So saying that it's mainly about commercializing and deploying these solutions is the main innovation challenge we have. There are some areas where we really need demonstration, though, and one of those areas is the one we talk about here, and we really need to demonstrate the zero carbon construction site and promising, for example, on electrification, which we see as absolutely crucial when it comes to the buses that we see outside here today, but also when what we see is in the pipeline when it comes to bigger machinery, and also, of course, when it comes to material production, so like steel and cement sector, we really need to put a lot of demonstration funds into decarbonizing heavy emission sectors today, and also, of course, material substitution. The second thing I will mention is on the orchestrators of innovation. So we really need to mainstream, to bend all these curves that Rockström has been talking about previously here, and to enter into a circular economy based then on renewable energy and renewable resources. We need to get that paradigm, that thinking, that new way of thinking into the orchestrators of innovation, the engines of innovation. And those, of course, are the science parks, the Lindholmen Science Park here in Gothenburg, for example, Zhongguancun in China, which is one of our partners in our innovation work in WWF. And if they get the framing of where we need to be 2050 into the creation of a global, the innovative brains companies, big and small, today, that is what the journey we must start now. And so Zhongguancun, for example, they have 13,000 tech companies that they're hosting in their science park. And we can see a big interest from such orchestrators, also for the South Africa Renewable Energy Business Incubator, which is another partner we have, Innovatum, etc. in this region, in forging partnerships when it comes to clean tech innovation, so that you can have better flows of the small entrepreneurs and also bigger companies to actually sit and incubate for 6 months, meet the business partners in China, if you incubate in Zhongguancun, for example, to meet those investors there, meet the corporate customers, and expand on those markets and acquire the market knowledge. We see a promising, being in the Nordics now, we see a promising such initiative called the Nordic Innovation House, which is in California, so in Silicon Valley, so the biggest orchestrator of innovation in the world today, and connecting, of course, with probably all companies in this room. And the Nordic Innovation House started only 6 months ago to be a seat for innovative companies to sit and incubate and get all these contracts. And of course, the Nordic countries coming together and pooling has increased the flow. Only over 6 months' time, doubled the flow of innovation companies going to Silicon Valley to establish those relationships to go global from start. And of course, then you are also forced as an innovator to think big. So fail fast or grow fast, which is something that is a challenge that for smaller economies like this country is often something you're not so challenged to do. The third thing is the business model innovation, and in particular the integration of finance to give an make it attractive for customers, your innovation, your technology. And it's the whole issue of avoiding to tie in capital for your customer to invest in the best innovation, the best available technology. We see, for example, companies like Siemens when it comes to the construction or building sectors, where Siemens and the buildings efficiency part of Siemens are teaming up with Siemens Financial Services to now offer big property managers facility managers to cut their energy use by 50-60%, but Siemens Financial Services, they take the upfront cost. And they take back on the savings over a 5-year time, and then they hand back the much more energy efficient house back to the owner, of course. Well, they own it over time. But that kind of business model we're seeing increasingly in clean tech. An Indian company, smaller company called Aspiration Energy, which we have awarded a climate solve, as we call an innovation program that I'm running for WWF. They are doing the same thing, but for bringing solar heating into manufacturing industry in India. So they can heat up to 130 degrees and take away the coal and gas need for that kind of heating, and they offer that as a financial service to the factories because they have a funding behind it. We're also seeing smaller companies doing this. Last week I awarded a very small Swedish company, Luxich, who are doing this for LED lighting, to switch all the lightings to LED, get an 85% saving on your lighting costs and the energy use for your lighting, and offer taking the whole value chain, offering the finance as a service. So the business model is very important, and of course this is also what's been driving solar investment in the US over the last 2-3 years, when it's really taken off, is the solar as a service, which is what Longevity and Solar City, etc., are doing, putting the solar energy on rooftops without the customer living in the house actually taking the capital cost. And it is very important for innovation to have ambitious policy frameworks. It's very important to have clarity where we are heading. We think that's very important outcome, one of many important outcomes from Paris and COP21, but it's clarity that we go, as G7 said recently, towards full decarbonization. If there's clarity in the target where we're all heading, we can reach it faster, which we will also have to do, like Rockström said earlier, by full decarbonization by 2050 to be within safe operating space. So the policy framework there is important, the long-term policy, the climate legislations that are coming into place in more and more countries, developed and developing. In terms of innovation, public procurement is also very important, and that has been brought up in the previous panel. Advanced purchasing commitments, not least in terms of driving innovation, or technology procurement, as you sometimes call it, where you're procuring a function. For example, it's been used on fridges, to where you set the function, how energy efficient do we need to have a fridge needs to be, and then you do a competition where you offer then to buy a certain number of these fridges if they actually live up to those performance requirements. And that could be interesting to use as a tool also in the construction side. Finally, inspiration is important for change, we believe as well, and using cases. One of our last climate solvers that we awarded in China is called Metaspace. They do an air dome, so like for sports halls, exhibition hall centers, they're expanding their dome to quite a lot of different areas. They're building an air dome in a week, very low carbon footprint in the construction of this. They're using 75% less energy than comparable structures. When I met the president in January, we discussed, well, why don't you actually can you put solar on top of these domes? I mean, they're huge. They're very, very big domes, so wouldn't it also be good to put solar on? He came to Sweden in May, and they had already, through one of his orchestrators, TEDA, which is Tianjin Eco Development Agency, they had already developed this fabric that they have on the dome with integrated solar. So now waiting for a customer to come and invest in this. And of course, the customer demand for innovation is really, really important. In India, we've also awarded a company called Gibbs, geothermal building cooling systems that deliver 60% savings in energy cost and CO2 emissions from buildings. To mention a couple, we also partner with an organization called Sustainia, and they come up with a catalog every year that I can warmly recommend, which is on the sustainable innovation, but it's called Sustainia 100. So it's taking 100 solutions from all around the world. So the last publication included innovations from 151 countries. And two exciting building innovations there is, one is Archiblocks, which is an Australian company that is now commercializing the Energy Plus house prefabricated. So you can now get a prefabricated energy positive house in Australia. Another example, when it comes to retrofit, which is of course a very, very big challenge, not least in Europe, is Powerhouse Sherbo up in Oslo. So a very cold environment where a retrofit has been done for an office building and actually delivered as well an energy positive house after the retrofit has been done. And the architects behind that worked on this, they're called Snøhetta. They didn't actually believe they could do it, but they could. And that's a really, really promising story, that if you set the bar high in what we can achieve for innovation, we can do so much more. So I would say that this is definitely the point of unacceptable risk, but it's also the historic point of unprecedented opportunities to transform economies and truly address climate change. Thank you.